Hello, my name is Grian, and today I'm going to be transforming a desert village. I know I've already transformed a normal village, but I got so many comments saying you've got to do the desert one. Now, we're going to be employing the desert style that I've used in previous videos, but we're going to be going over a lot of town planning and that kind of stuff. I have not really covered town planning, so this is a really good opportunity to talk about certain things. So straight away, you can see myself going around with some stained clay in different colours. I'm planning out where everything's going to be. Now obviously at the time, you're going through these visualizations in your head. For example, the red means a pathway, and the yellow indicates how I'm going to connect up certain buildings together to make them better or improve them. They just symbolize where they're going to go, and the grey, it symbolizes where a wall is going to be. And you can see the general plan and how I've sort of brought this together. If there's two little buildings together, a yellow is connected to make them look nicer. If it's a pathway or a general area, the red is there to do so. Let's start from one end of the village. That's what I always recommend. We make our way through all these pathways, and you can see all the yellow clay everywhere. You can see how those are connected up, even the farm connected to that little hut. You can see where the visualization comes in, but we will go into a little bit more detail later. The first thing you need to do is what I'm doing now, is just tidy up the mess. I intentionally chose this desert village because it was just a total mess. There was sand everywhere, the paths were all skewed. In fact, the villagers were all in this little garden, and I set them free and they ran around like little cockroaches getting in my way all the time. So as you can see, I've just cleared away a lot of the mess, and that's one of the first things you need to do because a clean area is needed for a town planning to work. So let's start from one end of the desert village, as I said earlier, and we're going to start with the wall. A very, very simple wall. I didn't want to do anything too fancy because the wall isn't the main feature, the actual town is. This is my addition to the town. I'm not actually transforming anything here, so I just sort of created a organized mess with a little arch at the front, nothing too special because I didn't want the wall to seem too special. But we're going to get into the main transformation stuff in just a second. So, as you can see, we're making our way towards the village now, but it's important to start from one end and make your way through. If you start doing everything all at once, you might find that it's a little overwhelming, and it can be difficult with a project like this to know where to start. So you can see where the pathways are. I've just highlighted them using some staircases before starting to connect up the church piece to the house. Now I'm going to be keeping the main features, and in this one I'm even going to keep some of the slopes, which is not common with the type of style that I use with a desert build. I usually go for what you see there with the logs sticking out of the walls, and to be honest with you, I will talk about this many times, and it doesn't matter if I miss a bit and it seems like it's going very fast, because if you undergo a project like this, you're going to be reusing the same techniques over and over again, and you will see throughout this video, most of it is the same technique, so you can just see what I'm doing now and sort of, let it go by, but you'll see in detail how we keep reusing the same techniques to make the houses a similar style, but not exactly the same. However, this one here that we're working on is a little bit special because it's not just the desert style house that we've got going on with a little bit of depth. You can see how there's only a few frame pieces and then the wood and then a little bit of detail, which again I will go over later. But the special thing about this is that tower piece at the back because it was connected to the vanilla church. But as I was saying, I did work my way fairly organically from one end to the other, so I did finish one side before completing the other side. It was a little bit weird. Now, when I was filming this, I wasn't thinking quite as logically as I should. I was zooming around, changing things, like, oh yes, I can change this, and I can change that, I can do this, and do that. As you can see there, I'm making this little detail which I love, and you're gonna see it multiple times, but you just use signs and make it look like it breaks up the light that comes in. Oh, it's really nice using signs and log. But as I said, these are all things that we're gonna go over multiple times. So, detailing the walls, fairly simple, utilising some slabs and some staircase, but this thing at the top is very unique, so you need to pay attention if you're going to be undergoing a project like this. You need to raise the height a tremendous amount. In fact, I indeed well edited it a little bit higher because I decided it wasn't quite enough, and I added a golden bell that was completely visible by putting fences all the way around, but making sure they didn't connect, so you had a clear view, and some log, with the overhangs both above and below. And that's a really nice thing that you'll see a bit later in the cinematic-y shots. So, the next thing is all of these pathways in between. I decided to add a well, and I actually had quite a lot of trouble trying to figure out a nice design there. I wanted to make it look like there was a bucket attached to it, but I tried using a cow, it didn't really work. So we're moving away, and you can see already on the left hand side how that really stands out, and that was, by all accounts, mostly vanilla, just transformed. Utilizing those shapes that were already there, connecting up a couple of buildings, raising the height, really helps. So as you can see, on most of these buildings, in fact, I think all of them apart from the first one, you shave the head off of the house. You take away that arch over the top and make it a flat roof, or maybe replace it with another story, and then you start to add the logs, the details in the walls, making sure you have that at least 1 block depth. Most of them have an extra layer of depth underneath. As you can see, there's another layer underneath that makes it go even further back. And then on the top, exactly the same thing. You need to keep an area of depth, but you don't need to make the top story overhang or go back a little bit. It's all very straight up, but you get this sort of squared detailing effect. Now, for final details, I didn't do any interior, but I did add some vines and some grass around the houses to make it look like there's a little bit of life there. Now, I'll come back to that because it does look a little dead, but we will change the biome at a later time. So, again, we're employing the same techniques on this house as we did the previous two. Now, I do hop around at this point because I want to lay out most of the houses, like the framework and just the general gist of things, before I continue. So I do sort of hop around from project to project, and I stopped working as linearly as possible. Now, this used to be a farm, what I'm working on now, and this is a really cool technique. So I am moving a little bit slower. You can see how I'm utilizing fence gates here, and I'm creating one of those hanging garden type things. So I create this framework of gates where I then droop down loads of vines, and then underneath you make a little table and some chairs and stuff, and you've got a really nice setting there. Again, it looks a little bit dead because of the biome, but we're going to change that later. So that's a really nice alternative if you don't want farms. Of course, you probably do want some farms. So those two farms at the back are really well placed. Now, all you have to think about when you're transforming a village is mainly how you're going to utilize what's already there. Minecraft has generated the shapes and the design. You just have to make it better, because obviously the natural generation of these villages is awful. As you can see, these that door is in the air on that building there, but you need to pay attention to your Y coordinate. Most of the houses are the same height in a natural village, but you need to have the variation in height if you want your village to look good. So you can see that I've made some taller, some shorter. Some are the L shape, some are totally square. It's really important to have a variation in not only height, but shape and detail. So although the style is the same, and do you see what I mean? Look at those villagers being cockroaches. They're all huddling together. They're weird things. But I've completely lost my train of thought. So yeah, the detailing needs to be not the same for every house, but be in style throughout the village. It's really important to stress that point. Now, one thing I did, and you can probably see it throughout the little houses that I've already done, but using some birch slab and then some fence gate underneath, or even as a top to the doorway, as you can see on the front of this one, they're really good ways of decorating it because those colours complement each other. Using sandstone entirely for this village would be not exactly wrong, but as there is no wrong way to do this, but you can use some variations of colour. For example, the buttons there are the normal oak, and then the fences, you'll notice that I didn't use birch with the fences. That's because the colours complement each other, and you get a proper palette. Another thing I can point out while we're here is you can see that I didn't just use the sandstone, but I also used like the chiseled sandstone and the smooth sandstone, because again, as I have said in previous videos, using these integrated into each other will break up the texture and be a little bit more easy on the eyes. So that farm there that you see, again, I'm using this lovely effect of the logs overhanging things. It really helps to create shapes that don't really exist. So it's a little bit hard to explain, but as I have said previously, everything is about the shape in this. You have the style. The style is easy to replicate, but visualizing the shapes from the original Minecraft buildings is the tough part. So this one here was, as you can see, like there's a bit of stone slab, that's part of the original, but what I did was add an entire story above it and to the side at the back before adding everything else. So you can see how the variation in height really helped this build right here, even if inside there really isn't that much space. Again, using the lovely sign trick that you can do, look how nice that looks. I mean, it's a lot of wood to use for a decoration, but it really accentuates the whole style. And then adding some fences and fence gates on top of them help even more with not only the shape, but the color palette and everything else. So I added another vine garden here, but I decided to keep it as a farm underneath as well. And I also lowered the block on that one because you want to try and keep everything kind of smooth. So in line with all of the paths that you have around. So as I said earlier, there is a little bit of the same going on here. We have a lot of the detailing that's similar. Obviously, to me, from my point of view, this is all stuff that I kind of know. And I did it so much during the 4 hours it took me to record this video that it's almost become second nature, so it's kind of hard for me to describe at this point. However, I will point out, apart from the birch wood and the other sort of tricks, just making some holes with some slabs and some staircases upside down to create a little pattern, they really, really work. Having different shaped windows for different walls, try and center them, all good pieces of advice. Now, as you can see, and I haven't really talked about this, on the top of every building, I had it so it's not a full block, but a half slab integrated into the wood that overhangs the buildings. So that's just another tip, as well as trying to decorate them with as much simplicity as possible. Even just adding a simple button in the corner of these builds are really effective ways of sort of breaking it up a little bit and making it seem less square, because even that tiny button just changes the depth that tiny little bit. So on this last house, just a very generic one, it wasn't finishing on a grand note or anything, this is just a very typical house that I have done. So I will actually link it below, the detailed tutorial on how to make a desert styled house. This has been a very, very quick sped up version of what happened, because I don't want to do a tutorial on how to transform a desert village, because all you need are the techniques. And you can see that I changed the biome to make it look a little less dead on the leaves, as I did say I would. Unfortunately, you do need access to world edit or something like that, but I built all of this by hand. I used very, very little world edit, so it is possible. And what I want this video to do is not sort of leave you wanting to copy it, but inspiring you to undergo a project like this, because do you remember what it looked like before? Well, I'll show you again in a minute, but I want to point out that how good this looks. Now, I didn't really finish. I think after 4 hours, I was so fed up with transforming this village that I was done, but if I were to do it again, I'd probably add a river or some sort of water feature apart from the well. Having a river running through that, I didn't really plan for that, and that's probably why it didn't come together. But you can see all of my plans came to fruition. Everything was built as it was planned. And that's what really is the key building success of any transformation video, is planning. and I managed to do that, I think, quite well. One thing I didn't really do was make the buildings interact with each other. I could have had like little bridges, especially with those two centerpieces that are very close together. I could have had a nice bridge linking those up. And one thing I do want to point out from a town planning point of view is the larger ones are in the middle, so that you sort of focus your eyes in. The houses on the outer side are a little bit shorter, so that you focus your eyes inwards and you're looking at the right thing. And if you remember what it looked like at the start, you can kind of see why I went for a faster style of video. And it was, by all accounts, just a very simple design, but when utilized correctly and, well, transformed, you can actually make a really nice city. And if you're in creative mode, this took me about 4 hours. It may take you the same, maybe longer, maybe less, but around that time is what you're looking at. Like I said, there's lots of ways to improve it, but that's it. Like, I know that was incredibly fast, and at least it was third person. If you remember from my other village one that I did, that was all first person, and everyone was like throwing up everywhere because it was like making you feel sick. Oh, it was horrible. However, this one was better, I feel. I will link the tutorial for the desert house on its own so that you can replicate the style. Town planning is important. I didn't really go step by step, but it's very, very simple to do. Plan it out, link it up, make the houses, decorate, you're done. It's very, very simple. I had a lot of fun doing it. I have to thank Crushed Pixel, the guy that made the replay mod. One of my files, after 2 hours recording, it just didn't save. He restored it for me, so obligatory thank you to Crushed Pixel. I always link the replay mod in any video that I use, so if you wanted to go ahead and do that, check out the website. Really cool mod, really nice. So that's it from me, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this video. I've got some really cool stuff coming out. Going to be doing a little bit more branching out. As you can kind of tell, I've been doing a bit of this, a bit of that. I did an adventure map, I did some like Who's Your Daddy, some non-Minecraft stuff. I'm going to be trying out a roleplay-ish kind of thing, my own take on that, and I'm going to be trying out a modded survival series. Now, don't take these as, he's just going to become a generic Minecraft YouTuber. It's not true. I'm always striving to do something unique and something that will be my own. I've also got 5 steps to create a boat coming out with an awesome intro that I'm really, really proud of. Just some cool stuff in general. So, I'm hoping that you guys are going to love it. I love feedback. Like, I love reading the comments, seeing what I'm doing right. What parts you love the most. Is it too fast? Is it too slow? I'm always trying to develop my style and improve my video making. So, that's it from me. Thank you very much for listening to my babble for like 20 minutes or so. Goodbye.